Hey everyone, Zelcher here. I recently saw the film Magnolia and I loved it. It's been stuck in my head ever since I saw it. And since I want to start making shorter, more consistent videos, I thought, why not talk about it? Try my hand at some reviews. Magnolia is the second feature film from director Paul Thomas Anderson. He's a director I've always appreciated, but never truly loved his work. I've enjoyed films like There Will Be Blood, The Master, Punch Drunk Love, but I was never really in awe of them like everyone else seems to be. But Magnolia just clicked with me immediately. I get it now, I get why this guy is so beloved. So Magnolia takes place over the course of one day in the San Fernando Valley. We follow multiple seemingly random characters whose storylines become interconnected either because they meet each other physically, or more broadly, because their storylines share the same themes. In previous videos, I've mentioned my fascination with the idea of Sonder, pretty much being aware that every person around you is living their own complex life and dealing with issues you'll never know about. And taking this film into account, they may be issues that are kind of similar to yours. These individual stories mainly explore the theme of loneliness, each one in a different way and with different relationships. On top of that, the film also explores things like trauma and how much the past can truly affect us in the present. The film has a tagline that alludes to rain, but I think a more appropriate tagline would be a specific line said by two characters and featured prominently in trailers for the film. That being, we may be through with the past, but the past ain't through with us.
And the book says we may be through with the past, but the past is not through with us.
And the book says we may be through with the past, but the past ain't through with us. Rated R.
That line just encapsulates everyone in this film, and it's a line I keep repeating in my own head. Another line I loved was about love itself. I won't spoil it, but it's set between two characters at a gas station near the end of the film. For those who know what I'm talking about, I too don't know where to put things. I can't talk about my admiration for this film without at least mentioning that I heavily relate to pretty much every character in this film, and the plights they face on this day. Obviously, it's not one-to-one, I am not an old man dying of cancer, but the desire to reconnect with someone you once did wrong in the past? Yeah, I can relate to that. I am not a drug addict, but indulging in vices as a way to cope with your problems? Yeah, I've done that. The character I most relate to has to be Donnie Smith. I'm not gay, but the lines he says and the actions he takes in his desperate pursuit of love, yeah, that's literally me. Some of you may be surprised to hear me talk about love like this, but one quick trip to my Letterboxd and you see that my top 4 films are all kind of tragic romances. And yes, that includes Spider-Man 2. Have you seen that movie?
Well, leave him alone. Maybe it's a secret love.
Love should never be a secret. If you keep something as complicated as love stored up inside, it can make you sick.
This film kind of hit me at the right point in my life. In the same way that these characters try to pursue happiness and a sense of identity for themselves, I too struggle with those things even as I turn 24. But also, I don't think that pursuit ever really goes away. This film follows characters ranging from kids to adults to someone who is literally at the end of his life, and they're all just trying to find purpose within their own lives, trying to find meaning in a world that is often meaningless. Things can just happen for no reason, and we can either adapt or lose ourselves in the chaos. That's what the film means to me, and that's why I connect with it so much. And the writing isn't just good because it relates to me or anything. This is a very ambitious project. You know, a 3-hour film with diverging and converging plot lines. A lot can go wrong here. But to also make it engaging the whole runtime and full of believable and layered characters, that's impressive. While this is a wholly original screenplay, the general themes and tones of the film are directly inspired by the songs of musician Aimee Mann, a personal friend of Paul Thomas Anderson at the time. Her songs are featured prominently throughout the film and even inspired the character Claudia. So yeah, the soundtrack for this film is fucking amazing. Her cover of One is probably the best I've ever heard. It's used in the opening sequence where every character is introduced, and is just a perfect way to set up the experience of this film. I also really love how they sync the opening title with this little guitar solo thing at the beginning of the song. It's really cool. The song Momentum is also an absolute banger and has quickly become a top 5 songs of all time for me. Not only does it perfectly encapsulate this whole film, but it also perfectly encapsulates me as a person. Listen, fellas, don't worry, I'm fine. It just feels so refreshing to have a piece of art perfectly vocalize your thoughts, feelings, and fears. And to discover this in 2 different mediums on the same night, that is a goddamn miracle. I'll keep the quarter-life crisis stuff to a minimum from here on though. One of the few complaints I have with the film is the use of the song Wise Up. Not because it's bad, it's actually a great song, but it's just that the sequence where this song is used feels kind of cheesy. This is a long movie and it goes by really fast. There's never a dull moment, except for this one. I won't fully go into it since it happens near the end of the film, but basically we've reached peak drama within most of the stories, but before we go back to them, we are presented with a pseudo music video. It's not terrible by any means, but it really took me out of the film. I was watching this at home and was holding in my piss for over an hour because I was glued to the screen. But after that, my immersion was broken and I took my bathroom break. It is really the only flaw I have with this film, and it's not even that long. But hey, nothing's perfect. Beyond just the songs, the score is also fantastic, being composed by the legendary Jon Brion, although at this time he was pretty much unknown. He is one of the reasons why each scene flows together so perfectly. Yes, watching a long film or video feels more comfortable when we have some background music, but it's like the tone of the score manages to be perfectly adapted with the specific tones of each scene and storyline. Like the track Showtime is over 10 minutes long. A lot of different stories are unfolding over that time. The track has to be loud and quiet multiple times while still retaining the core melody of the theme. And the man makes it work. I find it really impressive. The track I've Got a Surprise for You is also great. It plays during a great part at the bar. A good score helps the pace, but really it's the editing that is the unsung hero here. I've seen my fair share of 3-hour films, including the more recent film Oppenheimer, which was the exact same runtime. And while I do enjoy these films, I can definitely feel the runtime and end up leaving the experience thinking something could be cut out here. Not the case for Magnolia. Every scene is given the perfect amount of time, and the transitions are phenomenal. Never thought I'd say that about an editing trick where you cut during a fast pan, but I don't know, it just feels so right for this film. I just love this montage. And the shots themselves, the cinematography, is just beautifully done. Yes, you have your pretty establishing shots and your cinematic close-ups, but there's also some pretty interesting stuff going on with angles and framing, the focus of the shot, close-ups and pans, camera movement in general. There's this elaborate long take around the 45-minute mark, which is just excellent. And it's not just to look cool, there's purpose behind all the madness per se. These shots are used to establish a relationship between 2 characters, or sometimes between just one character and their own solitude. It helps us gaze into a character's state of mind, or emphasize the chaos of the environment. This is one of those films where I want to dissect every shot. I haven't even talked about the lighting. Look at it, it means something. Clearly, I would love to make a full-on Zelcher deep dive on this film one day, and I will, but, you know, baby steps. And what else is there left to talk about except the performances? These types of ensemble cast films were really popular back in the late 90s, for better and for worse. Obviously this is one of the better ones, and it really only works because everyone is absolutely doing their best, whether it be a well-known actor or just some kid. Let's go through them all. Tom Cruise plays the character Frank T.J. Mackey, an eccentric pickup artist with a mysterious past. I don't watch a lot of Tom Cruise movies, but I get the impression he tends to be a more serious action kind of guy. So that means this role is a cast against type for him, which is why he was nervous about even accepting the part. And props to him, he nails the role. Frank as a character exudes confidence and charisma, and they got the perfect guy for that. You know, cause Tom Cruise is probably used to going on stage and selling bullshit to an audience full of gullible people. He's one of the experts. Philip Seymour Hoffman is in this. He's also great, although he's the most normal, simple character in this film, which was funny for me considering I know him best for his more complex characters. Still though, he has some great scenes, and I just love seeing this man in any film. Jason Robards plays the dying old man. He has the least amount of screen time, but is still a very important role. Coincidentally, Robart had to recover from his own near-fatal illness before playing a character dealing with the same thing. Unfortunately, he would pass away a year later, but, you know, if you're ending your career with a film like Magnolia, you've done something right. Julianne Moore plays his wife. She's good, but I can definitely see people calling her performance a little exaggerated, and even while watching, I felt like some lines could have used a second take. But when I considered what the character was going through and her mental state, these kinds of weird shifts and patterns in the way she yells makes a lot more sense, at least for me. John C. Reilly is also in this movie. I don't typically like him in movies. He mostly does comedies with Will Ferrell, and they act like man-children the entire time, and it's just not for me. And I guess he also felt the same way, cause no joke, this role was made just so that he didn't have to play another idiot on screen. He has some great chemistry with Melora Walters, and some really good emotional scenes near the end. That said, he's still the funniest character on screen, which is sorely needed when the rest of the film is kind of sad. So yeah, turns out John C. Reilly can actually be a good actor when he tries. I owe you an apology, I was not familiar with your game. Melora Walters plays the drug-addicted Claudia. Her character is essentially a complete mess, but she has to spend most of the film pretending she's not. And she plays the role very convincingly. I genuinely feel bad for her character at times, and I'll admit I got a bit teary-eyed. Finally, we have the game show plot characters. Philip Baker Hall plays the game show host. Good, solid performance from him. Don't have much to say about it personally. Jeremy Blackman as Stanley Spector. This is one of those performances where I'm like, why can't other directors pull this off, you know? There are a lot of films with child actors where the director just kind of settles for mediocrity for roles that are far less complex than this one. This kid has some emotional range here, and he not only pulls it off well, but he keeps up with the other actors. He shines through in a movie that has both Tom Cruise and Philip Seymour Hoffman. That's kind of impressive. And finally, we have William H. Macy as quiz kid Donnie Smith. He is a washed-up pseudo-child star on the same quiz show, and is my favorite character in the film. There's a point in the story where his character gets drunk. Drunk acting is not an easy thing to pull off convincingly, but his is pretty spot on. There is a lot of heart and vulnerability on display here, which can also be said for the other characters too, but there are just certain mannerisms, certain facial expressions, certain lines that really make this a standout performance for me. And those are my thoughts on Magnolia in a nutshell. From my understanding, this is one of PTA's least popular films. Hell, I didn't even know he made it until a few months ago. It also seems like it has a few haters, among them PTA himself. He's gone on record saying he would have made this film shorter if he could. There are apparently some interviews where he doesn't look back too fondly on the film, and that's fine. A piece of art's harshest critic will always be the artist themselves. But for my money, I think this film is perfect. It's quickly becoming one of my favorite films of all time, and yeah, I will probably make a full Zelcher deep dive sometime in the future. My track record with that is a little shoddy, but it's gonna happen. I originally gave this a 9 out of 10 when I first watched it, but fuck it, it's a 10 out of 10. A true masterpiece. Hope you all enjoyed that little review. I hope to make some more in the future in between my big projects so that you all aren't starving for content. I see a lot of great films all the time, and I want to talk about a lot of them, but I literally don't have enough time in my day to make a full Zelcher deep dive for all of them. And it's not like every film even needs one. Magnolia for sure is gonna get one, but a film like Entre Nos, I saw that film recently, loved it. Could have made a little review, get some coverage on a film that's kind of obscure, but I was in my only big project era, so I never actually did. I like talking about movies, so I will make more videos where I talk about movies. With all that said, shout out to the patrons, as per usual. You guys are all great. I'm gonna try streaming more in the future, so look forward to that. And I will see you all next time.